Good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. He's not an assassin, but he's a tough guy. That from President Trump today, as he has now put Vladimir Putin on the clock.
Disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple.
Coming up here on The Hill tonight, we will show you how the president is now helping to arm Ukraine. Plus, pardon me, President Biden doubles down on his use of the Autopen from the Oval Office, how his own son was different, and what President Trump is saying now. Also tonight, it's the bipartisan issue potentially in this town. Certainly not much more above it. Confronting China. We'll show you how the U.S. is taking on its adversary and doing so underground. And down in Florida, lawmakers take a tour of Alligator Alcatraz, the detention center there. How at least one governor tonight is saying that his state could be next. But first tonight here from The Hill, a decision that's being celebrated abroad by many on the left and stirring a little bit of frustration in the president's own base. The commander-in-chief announcing from the Oval Office today, next to the head of NATO, that the U.S. is sending, quote, top-of-the-line weapons to Ukraine. Now, Trump emphasizing that NATO, not the United States, will be the one to pick up the tab. It is a far cry from the verbal throwdown with the Ukrainian leader, Vladimir Zelensky, just 4 months ago in that very same room, and comes as the president suggests that Putin is leading him on, and just 3 weeks after his trip overseas to NATO. We begin tonight here on The Hill with our Kelly Meyer, live at the White House with the very latest there. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. And I was just thinking back to when I was in the Oval Office just a few months ago, back in May, when I asked the president, you know, Putin keeps attacking Ukraine, but you're saying that you trust him. And at that time, he said, well, this is a war. And now he seems to be shifting his tone on this and really saying he's not happy with Russia. So he's not only shifting his frustration from Zelensky to Putin, but he's also shifting his stance on NATO. Trump going from weighing whether to stay in the alliance to now standing shoulder to shoulder today with the NATO Secretary General and getting NATO member countries to foot the bill for the weapon shipment to Ukraine. Now, President Trump giving Putin 50 days to make a peace deal, otherwise face severe sanctions. Today, he threatened 100% secondary tariffs on Russia, which would impact those countries that trade with Russia. It is much less than the 500% tariffs that a bipartisan group of senators are pushing for on Capitol Hill. President Trump says, though, with Putin, it's all talk. Take a listen.
I go home, I tell the First Lady, and I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit.
Now, a White House official tells me not to read too much into the First Lady weighing in, that she's not pushing him to put the pressure on Putin. And another Ukrainian official I spoke to today says he's worried about that 50-day deadline, that it leaves room for Putin to really do whatever he wants. We heard drone strikes were continuing today. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer, live tonight on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. So during that meeting today with the NATO chief, President Trump emphasizing throughout that the United States will not be covering the cost.
We've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. The United States will not be having any payment made. We're not buying it, but we will manufacture it and they're going to be paying for it.
Now, here are some of the weapons that could be heading toward Ukraine that the U.S. would manufacture. The Patriot missile interceptors, precision-guided rockets, Hellfire missiles, howitzers as well. Now, the war with Russia and Ukraine has been going on for more than 3 years, 1,230 days. The U.S. has spent about $67 million, roughly, as of April, in assistance to Ukraine. Some of the military aid that we have sent includes 3 Patriot air defense batteries and munitions, more than 200 howitzers, with more than 3 million artillery rounds and more than 10,000 Javelin anti-armor systems. With me now, the Democratic congressman from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton, member of the House Armed Services Committee, former Marine as well, as I always like to note. Congressman, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. You're a Democrat. You as well. You're a Democrat. Are you going to tell me tonight that you think the president got this one right?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican when it comes to opposing war criminal Vladimir Putin and his criminal war. It's just taken this long for Donald Trump to figure out that he's actually a bad guy and that he's been playing him like a fiddle.
So you think he's been played by Putin?
Of course he is. I mean, since when have we had a United States president on either side of the aisle stand up and repeat Kremlin talking points about the war? This is Donald Trump who said that Zelensky started the war, not Putin who invaded, that this was the Ukraine, this is Ukraine's fault. That Putin is not a war criminal. I mean, he has just been lying to the world and to the American public, including his MAGA base, about what's going on there. It's nice to see him finally following in Biden's footsteps and actually supporting the Ukrainian freedom fighters who are defending their democracy.
I'm going to get to the base and Sean Spicer here in a second, but you mentioned the president, former President Joe Biden. It's not like he was able to end this. Not like he was able to. He wasn't, right? Joe Biden wasn't. Donald Trump certainly hasn't been able to. So how do you think that the commander-in-chief is able to hopefully get this thing settled?
Well, look, it's a hard question, and you're absolutely right that the Biden administration wasn't able to end this war. Sitting on the Armed Services Committee, one of the discussions that we always had, especially behind the scenes in classified settings with the Biden administration, was, okay, we understand that, you know, we support your policy, and this is Republicans saying this too. We want to help Ukraine, but what is the plan to win? How are we actually going to win this war? And let's be honest, the Biden administration did not help Ukraine win. They helped Ukraine survive. But when I asked that question of Trump administration officials, I mean, it was deers in the headlight, because they're clearly not getting any direction from the president, or at least they haven't been up until this point, to ensure that Ukraine wins. And why does that matter? Because it sends a message to the rest of the world that if you're a dictator like Putin or like Xi Jinping in China, you don't get to just start wars because you like to. That's an important message for America and our democratic partners around the world to send to murderous regimes everywhere. And it's good to hear that's finally, it seems to be at least, what Trump is saying as well now.
You do think that the president wants Ukraine to win, right?
We certainly haven't thought that when he's repeating Kremlin talking points, when he's blaming Ukraine for the war, when he's disparaging Zelensky.
So do you think that's an open-ended question, though, I guess is what I'm getting at?
I don't think people think that. I think it's still an open-ended question because just because Donald Trump is saying the right thing in the last 24 hours, it doesn't make the last 6 months go away. But listen, I'm happy with where Trump is today. He seems to make decisions based on politics, not on principle. Even when you just heard him talking about this, he wasn't talking about the principles of democracies overcoming murderous dictators. He was just talking about who pays the bill, like as if this is some deal not involving, you know, lives of innocent people. But let's stick with Trump when he's saying the right things, and hopefully he'll continue.
I'll leave it there. Congressman Seth Moulton with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. I know we'll talk to you again soon. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
You too. Joining me now, Sean Spicer, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House press secretary, host of the Sean Spicer Show podcast. Sean, nice to have you in. Happy Monday. Good to see you. There's the open question there. First off, let me start here. What do you take issue with what you heard there from the congressman?
Well, there's a lot to take issue with. Look, I will give Seth Moulton a smidge of credit for finally acknowledging that Donald Trump's doing the right thing in the interest of this country. I think he's always been seeking that. However, where Congressman Moulton continues to be wrong, and it's no surprise considering his track record, is that this isn't following in the steps of Joe Biden. Joe Biden begrudgingly gave Ukraine defensive weapons. There was never an attempt to actually win. The only reason that Russia invaded Ukraine was because of Joe Biden's feckless leadership. When Joe Biden took us out of Afghanistan so horribly, Putin saw that as a green light. But more importantly, what Donald Trump did today, Blake, and this is where I think I'm so proud of how he does things versus how the past has happened. It was just like Iran. Everyone said you had to go in full-on boots on the ground or you had to stay out. Donald Trump showed us a third way. Today, what did he show us? He showed us that we can get Ukraine the supplies that they want, but we as Americans don't need to be footing the bill.
But there's a question,
time.
Sean, but there's also a question of how he's handled this, right? And
right.
And
but at
I
the
want
end of
to
the
hold
day,
on, but I want to get your reaction because I thought this was pretty revealing. Here was what the president said today about Vladimir Putin and whether or not he's an assassin, and then there was more, and I'll get your reaction.
I don't want to say he's an assassin, but he's a tough guy. It's been proven over the years. He's fooled a lot of people. He fooled Bush. He fooled a lot of people. He fooled Clinton, Bush, Obama, Biden. He didn't fool me. But what I do say is that at a certain point, you know, ultimately talk doesn't talk. It's got to be action.
And it leads to the question, Sean, if the president was actually fooled by trying to go the route of talking and negotiating first.
Okay, so two things. Number one, I want to go back to my previous point, and then I'll get to it. I don't think that we can overstate how significant today was. This idea that America has always had to foot the bill for everybody else's issues, right? Europe needs to step up for its own national defenses. The same thing that he did in NATO, he did today, which is show us a new way, a way that America can actually help its allies, but at the same time, not have to foot the bill for everybody's backyard issue. That's what he showed us today. To your point, look, all that one needs to do is read Trump's books, The Art of the Deal, The Art of the Comeback. Look at how he has dealt and negotiated his entire life. He talks very openly about this. You can't get a deal if you kick somebody in the face. You can't get a deal if you malign them. He has tried to talk to Putin to say, hey, look, I want to end the war. He's the only one who for 40 years actually had peace, right? He understands that you can't have the same thing happen over and over again as Joe Biden did and expect a different outcome. So he tried to do what he could with Putin to have a conversation. He made it clear today, talk is done. I'm going to take action. But I give him credit for trying to find a new and better way to achieve peace and not have the American taxpayer continue to foot the bill every single time Europe has a problem.
You give him credit, and I hear you. There's also questions, Sean, as you know, with the base and what the president is doing or is not doing. I'll give you a couple highlights here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, quote, "We do not want to give or sell weapons to Ukraine or be involved in any foreign wars or continue the never-ending flow of foreign aid," end quote. And then this also comes as parts of the right are not happy with how Jeffrey Epstein and that case has been handled. Here was Laura Trump earlier today, and then I'll get your reaction.
I believe that there will probably be more coming on this, and I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later. To everybody out there who's all worked up about it, there's no great plot to keep this information away that I'm aware of.
What damage has been done with the base, Sean?
Well, it's to be seen, but I think the problem that they face is that the Attorney General handed out a series of binders earlier that purported to show that and then said coming soon, there's going to be more. And so they set a level of expectations that people rightly thought would be met, and they didn't. So I get it, and I think Laura Trump is articulating probably where they are right now, which is to figure out how do we explain this. We set the bar. The Attorney General said that there was more information, and I think people on the right who has expected transparency were led to believe that there'd be more to the situation. I think Laura's right. They're probably trying to figure out what can we release to show what's there. But look, at the end of the day, as somebody who has known Donald Trump for 10 years, been there at the beginning, what he is doing on the MAHA front, on tax cuts, on the big, beautiful bill, on foreign policy, he is enacting not just one or two signature things, but entirely pushing the movement forward and getting things done in each of the respective areas. I give him a lot of credit.
Okay.
I think we hold him to a high standard because we've expected so much of Donald Trump. But we've got to remember that this is a guy who's not giving us excuses but results.
I do think it's fair to point out that the first 6 months and what's happened, you can say has been successful for the president, Sean. And in the last week, there have been a lot of questions from those who support him louder than anyone else who are wondering what's going on here in this moment.
But again, can I have one quick point?
Sure,
one
real
last
quick,
thing.
and then I gotta run.
I think on the Epstein thing, I get it, but I respectfully, I think that he found a brand new way. U.S. contractors are going to make a product, they'll profit from them, and NATO will pay the bill. That, to me, is literally the definition of America first. He showed it in Iran. He showed it again today. This is a president who's showing us that there is a better way to conduct foreign and domestic policy and deliver results for the American people, and I'm very proud of what he's done.
I'll leave it there with you. Sean Spicer with us tonight. Thanks, Sean. Talk to you again soon.
You bet.
Of course. All right. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. Alligator Alcatraz Are there going to be more of those popping up all across the country? What one governor's office is telling NewsNation tonight. Plus, China flexes its power in the Pacific, how its military is entering new territory, and the response that is seemingly coming from this country underground. And former President Obama telling Democrats to, quote, toughen up. Is he right? I thank you for being with us tonight. We still got a long way to go. 45 minutes. I'll be back on the other side in 4. I'm Blake Burman. See you then.
I've been there and I've seen these rooms that they are in. I wouldn't call them jail cells. I would call them a facility where they are held and that are secure facilities, but are held to the highest levels of what the federal government requires for detention facilities.
The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem addressing the conditions at Alligator Alcatraz, the migrant detention center in the Florida Everglades, which is now facing criticism, especially from Democrats.
The conditions that we saw inside this internment camp, which it is nothing less than that description, were really appalling. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage.
Now, despite the pushback, Secretary Noem is now looking at other states for similar facilities. It comes as ICE continues to conduct raids across the country, and the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt touting their work with a list of arrests that she put out on social media today, writing, quote, while you were enjoying your weekend, the brave men and women of ICE were removing violent, criminal, illegal aliens from our communities. With me now, the California Democratic Congressman Ami Bera, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, once again with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us. I hear the DHS secretary say that these Alligator Alcatraz, the facility there, is at the highest levels of standards there. If that's the case, Congressman, if you take them at their word, at face value, would you be for more of those going forward?
Well, what I'd say is if that is the case, they ought to invite you in there, Blake, to take a look and see what the high standards are. I look forward to talking to my colleagues from Florida, getting a sense of what they saw when they were in there. My gut sense is that these are substandard conditions that folks are just herded into really unsanitary conditions. Again, I haven't seen it for my own eyes, but I do want to talk to my colleagues and get a sense here.
You know, we saw the raids there in your home state in California last week. We carried those images live here on the Hill and on NewsNation. The government now says 350 plus undocumented workers, including 14 children. 4 people were picked up who had been convicted at one point in time of kidnapping, rape, or burglary. California safer now?
You know, I think California's always been pretty safe, and most crime statistics over the last 4 or 5 years are way down. So I think California's pretty safe. If he wants to go after criminals, folks with warrants and so forth, that's fine. I think he's going to find a lot of support amongst Democrats. But he's going after kids. He's going after, farm workers, other folks that have been in our communities for a long time. I think that's where he's going to lose public support. And if you look at those poll numbers, he is starting to lose some of that support.
So what's the balance here? Because I just read off what the government says occurred there in part last week, and I think anybody would acknowledge, at least when it comes to those kids and violent criminals, that you need to step in.
Yeah, I mean, so for violent criminals, that's fine. Again, he's not going to see any pushback. What we're starting to hear is that they're picking up families. They're, approaching folks, that look like they might have brown skin and so forth. They might have an accent. I don't think that's what the public voted for. You're hearing the farm workers afraid to go pick the crops. You're having construction workers being afraid to go to work. Those guys are not criminals. Those men and women are here helping support our economy. I think we ought to have an honest conversation about where we want to go with immigration at this point.
You always have one. It's why I enjoy talking to you and having you on the show. Ami Bera, Democrat there from California. We'll talk to you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Blake. Be well.
You as well. Programming note, by the way, for this Wednesday, it is a big day for NewsNation and our partners over at The Hill. The first ever Hill Nation Summit featuring some of the most influential folks in this town and beyond, both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. You know it's what we do. And by the way, would you look at that? I will be interviewing Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary herself. My conversation with Kristi Noem Wednesday afternoon. We'll play some of that for you here on the Hill Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock Eastern, right here on NewsNation. Still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. Minerals, magnets, the military. China has been making calculated moves to bolster itself as a global superpower, but now the U.S. is fighting back and in a way that maybe you haven't thought of before. All the conversations about what's going on in the air, on the ground, and at sea. What about underground? I'll explain. Other side of the break. Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. The threat from China is growing, and now America's top competitor is aggressively asserting itself, its Navy rather, in the Pacific. Today's Wall Street Journal, for example, with this headline: how China's military is flexing its power in the Pacific. The Journal reports the U.S. is, quote, sounding the alarm as China ventures even closer to the shores of Western allies. It comes as the U.S. is aggressively trying to counter China's dominance below the ground. The Defense Department announcing it's a first of its kind. We've never seen this before. A public-private partnership with MP Materials, a company that operated the only rare earth mine in the United States until recently. And just on Friday in Wyoming, a ribbon-cutting ceremony with the Energy Secretary Christopher Wright for the second rare earth mine in the U.S., the first one to open in 70 years. That ribbon cutting with Christopher Wright out there, you can see some of the video from it. Scroll forward here a little bit if we can, because I want to show you what the problem is and the issue is. China mines almost 70% of the world's rare earth minerals, while the U.S. way behind at 12%. China also has about half of the world's known reserves. The U.S. well back in 7th place. China showing no signs of slowing down either, doubling down on its exploration efforts. Here's a headline from the South China Morning Post reporting that China just discovered an additional 38 rare earth sites this year alone. They also have a chokehold on the global supply chain. Now, in June, its rare earth exports surged to the highest level since 2009, an issue that the House will address directly in a hearing tomorrow. Now, the president stressed the importance of rare earth minerals, even leveraging mineral rights in peace talks all around the globe, particularly with Ukraine and the Congo.
We're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things. We're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo.
Now, U.S. Rare Earth is developing a manufacturing facility in Oklahoma as part of an effort to help make that state a leader in the production of rare earth magnets. With me now here on the Hill, Josh Ballard is the CEO of that company, USA Rare Earth. Thanks for being in. Nice to see you.
Appreciate having me.
So this story all of a sudden got really big because of the renewed trade war between the U.S. and China basically is trying to put a hold on those rare earth magnets. Right. What are they? Why are they so important?
Yeah. So rare earth magnets, you have to imagine them as they're the technology that enables the electrification of the economy. So everywhere where you think about electricity being translated into motion, that's where these magnets are used.
Okay.
EVs are the obvious example. They can be used in drones. They can be used all through a car.
Right.
Cell phones, speakers. They're throughout the economy.
Okay. So it's this phone, it's that camera,
your computer,
all this stuff here
underpins modern technology.
How big of an issue is this? Because I just ripped off some of the stats there. China has 70% of the rare earth supplies.
That's right. 70% of the rare earth supplies, over 90% of the processing, over 90% of the metal making, over 90% of the magnet production. And importantly, there's key rare earths that was on the China control list about 2 months ago that they control over 98% of, which are key for defense and some of the higher performance magnets that we need in these technologies.
What can we do about it? Like, is this solvable? This is the United States. We can solve anything, right? Is this one of those things?
It's absolutely solvable.
How?
Of course we can. So there's two sides to it. I'm going to start from the easier, magnets and metal making. We can surge that here in the United States. We gave it up over the last 4 decades. We can certainly bring it back. We need some support from the government to lift up this entire industry, but of course we can surge it and build it fairly quickly. The deposits, however, that's a harder nut to crack. This stuff is very hard to get out of the rock. It's not like digging coal and just taking it out and using it. It's in the parts per millions within the rock. It takes a lot of science. It's going to take many years to do it.
So you name check the government there. You're in town. Obviously, I presume there might be some sort of connection there. What can the government actually do? Because there's a real question here, like we saw the MP Materials deal, of if the government should be involved with a private American company.
Yeah.
You also could make the argument that this is something that we have to win or we have to catch up on.
That's right. We have to win it. We have to catch up. And the government's got to be super creative. We did it in 2008 when the auto manufacturing was suffering during the crisis. Right?
So that was a crisis.
That's right.
Right?
And this is a crisis.
You believe this to be a crisis?
Yeah. These underpin our ability to create new defense technologies, right? They underpin a lot of modern technology today, and it's getting cut off. Ford was just saying a week or two ago that they were going to have to shut down production lines because they didn't have magnets. And this is happening throughout. We have customers calling us every day worried about their own magnet supply. So this could shut down specific industries. So it's a small industry in itself, a few billion, but it enables trillions of dollars of the economy.
So we already saw one company get into business with the government. Are you guys planning to do that?
Well,
do you want government investment in your company?
We are looking for the government to support to build this industry. Absolutely. We need a moat from China. China gets a lot of subsidization, a lot of money from the government, tax kickbacks, and so forth. It's not a competitive environment that we can compete against, but it's an environment an industry we have to build here. So there's going to have to be a moat built. So the creativity from the Trump administration has been welcome to the industry, frankly.
Can China shut us off?
They absolutely can. Yeah, they more or less have. They're starting to let it eke out.
But it's like anything else, right? Like if they shut us off, it escalates, and that gets dangerous for them, I would think.
It does. I mean, there's a balance here, right? I mean, they don't. If they overplay their hand, then we're going to just do it much faster and drop them, right?
Let me leave you with this. Where are we, say, in a decade?
In a decade, I think we're going to have a number of operating mines here in the U.S. We'll have a good amount of those rare earths being mined here, and I think we can build up our magnet and metal manufacturing within a decade, support U.S. industry.
All right, we'll leave it there. Josh Fowler, thank you, sir. Good luck here in town.
I appreciate it.
All right, still to come tonight here from the Hill, former President Biden defending the use of the Autopen and his comments capturing the attention of President Trump.
The Autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years.
So as the former president and his party address the controversy, another one awaits involving a big meeting up on Capitol Hill. With who? We'll explain, and what those two have said in the last 24 hours when the Hill returns.
NewsNation Wednesday, the Hill Nation Summit, a first-of-its-kind bipartisan event, bringing those in the know and those in power together, with all-day special coverage starting at 6 a.m. Eastern, interviews with Speaker Mike Johnson and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, and more. Plus special guests. Join Chris Cuomo live at 8 p.m. Wednesday, only on NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation and the center of politics. We're getting two very different versions of former President Biden's use of the Autopen when it came to clemency decisions during his time as president. According to the New York Times, President Biden defended its use, and in speaking to the decision-making process during an interview, quote, "I made every single one of those. The Autopen is, legal. As you know, other presidents used it, including Trump." Now, Biden relayed the decisions were always his and that there were plenty of witnesses. They were discussed, documented, executed. But the Times also reporting something else. When it came to clemency, President Biden didn't approve every name that came across his desk. Obvious question there. So who did? Additionally, when it came to clemency, Biden only used his own hand rather than the Autopen once. And that was when he issued a full pardon to his son, Hunter Biden. President Trump would opine from the White House today with a much different narrative than the one presented by the Times.
Look, the Autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. And I guarantee you he knew nothing about what he was signing.
Also taking some headlines from Biden's former boss at a fundraiser this past weekend. President Obama would lend today's Democrats some tough love when it comes to how to deal with the age of Trump. Quote, I think it's going to require a little less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions, and it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. Sounds like things are going well on that side of the aisle. Full panel with me now. Lance Trover, former spokesperson for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. Scott Bolden laughing at that one, NewsNation political contributor. Carla Sands, former ambassador to Denmark and Greenland. And Joe Cunningham with us for the first time, former Democratic congressman from the great state of South Carolina, well represented on this show. That state is. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. You satisfied with that response from Joe Biden?
I just want Joe Biden to go away like a former president.
So why?
And why talk about the Autopen when that plays directly into the Republicans' talking point?
Here's what I was trying to figure out today. I could sit here and say, you know what? All Joe Biden has to do is come out and talk and say whatever he wants, and it ends it, right? And so he came out and he talked, and it obviously doesn't end it. But I get to the question of why now? Why do you think he came out now for this?
Because I think that he is really concerned about the Republican narrative, about his presidency and his competence. He should have been talking about the 2005 DOJ memorandum that said the Autopen is effective and constitutional to use it. Donald Trump's used it. Every other president's used it. And why not talk about that to put it to bed, this Republican narrative? Donald Trump doesn't know whether Biden was all there or not. He just speaks in this hyperbole, and his MAGA supporters just eat it up. That make it true.
So I found it fascinating, Joe, that the one clemency that he signed by hand was his son, Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, it's a loser of an issue for Biden to be talking about. Yeah. Anytime they roll him out to speak on this, it harkens back to the lack of credibility the Democratic Party has right now. And you know, I'm in South Carolina, so we have every presidential contender or wannabe contender coming through our state. And when I see folks come through not rip the Band-Aid off on President Biden and the fact that he should not have run for re-election in the first place, and it should have been an open process, a democratic process, especially coming from a party that says save democracy.
That's old history, though. So,
but it all goes back to credibility, though. It may be old history, but you can talk about anything you want. But unless somebody is credible, and right now the Democratic Party doesn't have the credibility, it's because of those old issues, as you said.
They need that to move forward.
You give him any credit for coming to speak out on this? I mean, he had to answer the question at some point.
Wait, who, Biden?
Yeah.
I want more Joe Biden interviews. The Republicans want more every day. He needs to be on here with you tomorrow night, Blake, doing an interview.
I'd love to talk.
I mean,
sound like
I want him out here. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that the more Joe Biden talks, the worse things get for the Democrats. But I think it's the same for Obama. I don't think they want to hear from Obama either.
You don't
they
think
are both yesterday's news and leftovers. They both did not do a good job for our economy. The people were worse off at the end of their presidencies. And I think it's time for new blood. But they keep beating these same dead horses and taking the 20% issues on big issues, the 20%, while we have the 80% on President Trump's team.
What about to Carla's point, Joe, of Barack Obama coming out and giving this advice?
Again, I have a lot of respect for former President Obama. I think he lost a little bit of credibility when he did not call for an open process after Biden stepped aside. And again, that goes back to the ethos of the Democratic Party and basically repairing that credibility.
Hold on, you're a Democrat and you're trashing your party right now. So what gives you the hope?
I'm being
not trashing.
No,
you're being upfront.
Listen, I would rather hurt them with the truth than comfort them with a lie. Okay. And I'm being honest and transparent, as I have been for the last number of years, on where the party needs to go. And it starts with being honest with American people.
But I think that the Biden staffers are going to have consequences because what they did, were they getting paid? They're doing investigations right now. And I think they're also investigating, I know this, Obama and Biden targeting Trump. And there's going to be consequences there, too.
So to Joe's point, it's
a big deal. Bigger. It's 1,000 water days.
It's over. It doesn't really matter.
I want to ask you, though, about Joe's point, because here was the Hill, Scott. Mark Cuban, Democrats' only message is Trump sucks. Quote, Trump sucks, the sky is blue. Trump sucks. That's not the way to win. It's not because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them. Is Mark Cuban right?
Mark Cuban is right, and Barack Obama's tough love message, I like that. Now it's got to manifest itself. Because here's the deal. Everyone knows what Donald Trump is and isn't, and everybody knows what he's done with this big, beautiful bill. But you still got to have a message. You still got to give people hope. And if they don't like Trump, whether it's MAGA or Trumpism, if you don't like Trump, They've got to have an alternative. And most people don't think right now they've got an alternative. The Democrats are in the 30s and 40s in most polling. You got to get out of that dump, come up with a message and a messenger.
To the other side of the aisle, Lance, as Democrats try to deal with this, man, your party and Jeffrey Epstein and how all of that was handled now. I don't know if you saw the top of the show, but I was talking to Sean Spicer about it. The first 6 months of Trump, you could argue, was successful, exceptionally successful. I think a lot of Republicans would say. But then the last week, woof, with Ukraine, a totally different position, whether you support the decision or not. I'm not saying the decision was that. And then Jeffrey Epstein, it's not what the base thought it was going to get 8 days ago.
Well, I think if we're talking about Ukraine, the president committed to end the war. He didn't say he was going to end it on behalf of one side or the other. He said he was going to get the war over. I don't know that the base is like really upset. They just want to get the war done because they're tired of shoving.
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out today and saying,
there's going to be folks who disagree with it, but I think the base understands the commitment is to end the war. That was the commitment. And just quit shoveling billions and billions of dollars over there. They're going to be buying, NATO's going to be buying our weapons. We're not just going to be handing them over, which I think was what everybody kind of wanted. They wanted to like help out Ukraine, not at our expense.
How do you address this, though? The base upset over the client list. Laura Trump came out today and basically said there could be, I'm paraphrasing, could be more coming from the admin going forward.
Look, I think it's been reported out today. They're exploring different options. I think clearly they're going to have to take some further steps on that. What that is, also to be within the confines of the law and what the Justice Department can put out there.
Yes, I do. I think Trump may be dealing with the intelligence community, and there may be, they may have activated some of those perps, and they're not able to reveal their names because they're actually working for the government. I'm not saying that it's a good idea. I'm just saying that the IC community holds a lot of power in the United States. The people on the left and the right, they want justice for these victims. They want to know who the perps were. And I think there's going to have to be some kind of disclosure to close this.
So how does this unwind from your side of the aisle to say, okay, we can move on now?
I think
because you're nowhere near that right now.
I think they'll find a way.
Well, the Democrats and the Republicans both want this disclosed. And I got to tell you, here's the but-for test. The only reason you wouldn't disclose and keep your word if you're in Trump world to all those MAGA supporters, the only reason you wouldn't do it is because Donald Trump's name is all over these files.
No, it's national security. That's not right. Don't do that.
You can do national security all you want, but Donald Trump and his FBI director and Bondi of DOJ all promised before they got in office that they would release these files. Now they've looked at the files, and the only reason you wouldn't do it to satisfy your base.
You're an attorney by trade.
No, I know,
you
but you would do.
The only reason.
When it all comes down to it, it would be the only reason you wouldn't release it.
I mean, look, Epstein's been leveraged for political reasons for a while, and it's been used to get the base, Republican base, all hungry.
Yeah.
And they want to be fed.
Full of
and they're hungry, and they're going to eat something. So, I mean, now they're eating each other. I mean, as you look at this wedge that's being driven between them. So,
well, that's the question.
It's not going to be the end all be all, obviously, but it
will be.
It's an unnecessary self-inflicted wound.
And there's moral indignation by the people of the United States about this.
All right, I got to move on. I know we can talk about it all night.
And another thing.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you. Still to come. Tonight here on the Hill. There is a big summit tomorrow and featuring that guy right there. I'm going to explain to you why on the other side of the break it is bipartisan and it is absolutely something you should think about, and it's why we're covering it. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, why one columnist says Zohran Mamdani is not the answer for New York City's working class. That's 7 minutes out. My take on the other side of the break. Stay with us. If you're just getting home tonight on a summer Monday, trying to catch up on the top stories, here is what's trending right now on thehill.com. This is the big one in this town today. The president announcing, can we flip forward to it? There we go. The president announcing a big weapons deal for Ukraine in its war against Russia. Those weapons going through NATO. The president says that the U.S. will be paid for those weapons. This was the back and forth over the weekend between the vice president and the California governor, Gavin Newsom. The VP was over at Disneyland, and the two went back and forth at each other on social media. And I actually watched this live yesterday. Chelsea star Cole Palmer on Trump joining team for trophy ceremony. I was a bit confused The players were up there getting their awards from the president after the big FIFA team event, and it was fascinating watching the players interact with the president of the United States. They obviously don't do that often. To check out these stories and more, all you have to do is scan the QR code on your screen or head on over to thehill.com for the very latest. All right, time for my take now. And I talk about AI, artificial intelligence, a lot on this show, a lot more than you will see anywhere else on cable TV. And just look at how this week is starting. Today, the Pentagon unveiled it's awarding a contract up to $200 million worth to Google, OpenAI, Elon Musk's Grok, and Anthropic. Now, the government says they want the best AI talent solving for military use cases. And in Pennsylvania tomorrow, President Trump will be the headliner to tout what is reportedly a $70 billion investment in AI and energy. The president traveling to a summit being touted by the Republican Senator Dave McCormick.
We're going to do an energy summit in Pittsburgh later this summer.
It aims to gather global leaders in energy and artificial intelligence.
Axios is reporting that the Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro, Senator John Fetterman will be there as well, the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, a who's who. Now, it feels like this is kind of like the 90s all over again when many were trying to figure out that internet thing. There is no doubt that AI is hard to grasp. The reason why the government is getting involved is pretty simple. It's where the money's flowing. Regulation is a real question, but this is also a battle with China, which is why you are seeing both parties jumping on board, as they should be. We'll cover that event tomorrow. We'll see you then. I'm Blake Burman. Have a great night.